mean, we've had one heck of a I was away on holiday, came back last Monday, and ever since then, the world has kind of, seems to have exploded in incredible disunity in the country. I mean, we talk about the United Kingdom. I don't think I've ever known the United Kingdom to be more disunited.
Yeah, well, I think that's true. Like you, I can remember the riots in 2001. I can remember the riots even vaguely in the 1980s.
Yeah.
These are much more significant because what they're ultimately telling us, Mike, what they're showing us is just how badly the elite consensus, the policies that have been pursued by political elites on both the left and the right for much of the last 20 years are failing. They're failing before our eyes. I think everybody in this country condemns violence. I think everybody in this country condemns criminality. But the fact of the matter is that the curtain is being pulled back in Britain today to show the disastrous effects of mass uncontrolled immigration, of losing control of our borders, which has left millions of people feeling very unsafe in their own country, and failing to integrate the people who are already in Britain. Now, we can talk about misinformation, disinformation, and social media all day long, Mike. But the reality is many Brits out there know, I would argue the vast majority of them know, is that what this is ultimately all about is that people do not feel safe in their own country. And I think Keir Starmer, Yvette Cooper, and the Labour government have handled this so far disastrously.
Yeah.
I think this has been one of the biggest examples of political failure for a very long time.
Yes, I mean, I'm quite staggered at how bad Prime Minister Keir Starmer actually is at being a Prime Minister. I never thought he would be much good, but I didn't think he was going to be this disastrous so early on. I actually wrote a tweet before I went away on holiday, beginning of July, saying when I come back from holiday and the honeymoon period will be over, I imagine people will have seen the light and Labour will be in terrible trouble. Yesterday we got the news that he's gone from a 16-point approval rating to a 3, in sort of practically 2 weeks. It's been incredible. And I think also, the stories that have dare not spoken their name over the last 5 to 10 years is summed up rather well by the coverage this morning. Because on the front page of the Daily Telegraph, they've got Starmer having a spat with Elon Musk. Well, that's not really the story. The story is, as you've just said, that people are absolutely fed up to the back teeth of seeing their country change in a way that they don't recognise and that they didn't ask for and that they never voted for.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious to people outside of SW1 what these disturbances are all about. And I think the problem is that deep concern about the state of Britain has now been exacerbated by the way in which Labour have responded to this. And it has been a very one-sided response. What Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper should have said, Mike, in terms of let's get this discussion towards solutions, they should have said, we condemn violence on all sides. Yeah. Because by the time they've been making these statements, the clips of marauding Muslim gangs have been going viral on social media. We've seen examples of the police standing back for some communities, but being very hard on others. They should have got ahead of this and said, look, we condemn violence on all sides. They should have said this isn't only about misinformation. There are clearly understandable concerns about the state of the country, and here's how we're going to deal with those concerns. And they should have acknowledged that there have been mistakes in the past when it comes to things like policing. People are not idiots. When they see police officers taking the knee, when they see them sitting alongside Muslim imams at show trials when young boys have scuffed a copy of the Quran, and these videos are going viral online, people are asking themselves, is the police politically neutral and independent? So Labour should have got ahead of that and said, look, mistakes have been made. This is a watershed moment in the country. We're going to move ahead. We're going to actually bring the country back together. And the other thing, Mike, is, this is what I'm really concerned about. We know, everybody who tunes into politics, we know, based on what they said in the manifesto, that Labour does not have a serious plan for the next 5 years when it comes to dealing with the borders and when it comes to dealing with migration. Everybody knows that. They've already removed the Rwanda plan. They are making it very clear they're going to essentially give an amnesty to tens of thousands of people already in the country, which I suspect will incentivize many more people to come. What I'm worried about, Mike, is this is actually the beginning not the end of prolonged tensions and chaos in this country. And I would argue what we need is a new settlement. We need a new cross-party settlement on these issues, which the British people feel very concerned about, but on which both of the big parties have, and let's just be honest, they've lied to the country about these issues. They've lied to the country about lowering migration. They've lied to the country about taking back control. So we just need to get our cards on the table and say there is no going back from this. You can't close the curtain after these disturbances. Everybody can see the state of Britain. Everybody knows multiculturalism is failing. Everybody knows that we have communalism. We have disturbances, both minority on minority, but also minority on majority, majority on minority. We need to therefore say there's no going back from this. We have to have a new political settlement on both the left and the right. Now, I would hope Keir Starmer would lead that debate, Mike. I would hope he would say, OK, everything's changed. Let's get some heads together. Let's change this consensus that's dominated the country for 30 years. But you and I know Labour won't do that. This is why I'm concerned. Labour won't acknowledge the severity of this.
Let's look at the way that this has all been covered. I mean, we've got Jess Phillips last night, who's a Home Office minister, basically excusing Muslim gangs rampaging around her constituency in Birmingham because they thought they were going to be attacked by right-wing thugs, in her words. So she's basically saying that it's OK for them to do exactly the same, going around hunting, looking for white people to beat up and looking for cars with white people in them to smash the windows in. You know, and you look at the way that
Mike,
most of... Go on.
You have to be clear as to why Jess Phillips is saying that and why the left is saying that. They're saying it because instinctively they view not just the minority of idiots who are committing crimes in a negative way, but they view the white British majority with suspicion, and they will continuously prioritise minority interests over the wider majority. That is the Labour identitarian playbook. That's what's got us here, the identity politics, the tendency to view minorities as sacred and morally superior, and to view principally the white majority with suspicion, if not contempt. We saw that obviously during things like Brexit. We've seen it now in reaction to these events where essentially everything is now far right, not just the actual minority of far-right agitators, but essentially anybody who voices concern over the issues around migration and borders, even voting for democratic political parties like Reform, waving flags, singing songs about your country. These things are all considered far-right. But I've not heard Labour MPs come out and say, we don't think Muslims shouting Allahu Akbar, rather than waving the Union Jack flag, for example, is acceptable. I mean, it is so visible what is happening in terms of multiculturalism failing that it can't be ignored. As I said on Twitter X the other day, Mike, what I think this is a modern-day version of Norman Tebbit's cricket test, where he famously said, look, who you support at cricket actually tells us a great deal about how strong our national community really is. Well, the question I would ask the Labour government and Labour MPs, and actually a lot of people on the Liberal left, is if multiculturalism is really working in this country, if it's really successful, if it's really healthy, then why are these gangs of Muslims shouting Allahu Akbar and not flying the national flag? Because when the country's under pressure, Mike, that's when we really get to see where people's loyalties lie and which identities they prioritise. And I want to see us coming together. I want to see us rallying around a sense of shared Britishness, shared Englishness. And I want the British people fundamentally to feel safe in their own country. And that means we have to have a radical change of direction in Westminster. And just lastly, Mike, if I can, the other thing that you're seeing across social media is a concerted attempt to shut down voices that are critical of this elite consensus. The definition of Islamophobia is now apparently going to be expanded. We're already seeing the expansion of terms like far right. Go on Twitter and X and look at the hostility people like me are getting for simply saying, actually, what this is about is losing control of the borders and refusing to lower migration and essentially lying to the British people. What they're trying to do is now manage this conversation in a way that they can control this conversation and they can silence or exclude dissenters. And we're way past that point, Mike. The British people aren't going to fall for that. They need this conversation to be expanded. We need to have a mature, grown-up debate about how to change the direction of travel in Britain.
Yeah. Matt, it's really great to talk to you, and we must do it again soon. Thank you very much indeed. Professor Matt Goodwin there, author of the Matt Goodwin Substack.